Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall, and on the other end is not Mr. Floor. It is not a German. It is a bearded dude. It is Magic Mike. How's it going, Mike?
It's going awesome. I've gone counter the weather conditions, which is totally unintentional.
As in the beard growth was not intentionally done for heat.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is not the time to be growing a beard. I'm feeling the heat more so. I feel a bit like a sheep.
Was it a purposeful effort to grow the beard, or was it just a lazy consequence of not trimming it?
It's purely just lazy consequence because pretty much so far for July, there's been something every month. And normally I cut my own hair, I trim my own beard, I do it all.
Oh, you do your own stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You don't go to the barbers?
No. So I just, which is why sometimes, if someone was to look at me carefully in some of my Instagram photos, they would go like, who cut Mike's hair? And that's because it was me.
I think beard trimming, if you can do, like, I've wanted to be able to trim my own beard, but I can never, and I do it. I very rarely get it done by a barber, but I'm always frustrated because there's bits that are longer, bits that aren't quite as there, and I never get it quite as nicely. I don't know what the term is for it, but like the shape on the face, and yeah, it frustrates me. But beard, to me, like I'm happy to spend money on my hair being cut because they can just do a way better job than I possibly could. I know that. But for the beard, it's like, it feels like quite a lot of money for what feels like it should be a job I could do. Like I can see everything in the mirror, whereas the back of my head, that's a tricky one.
No, exactly. When I competed, I totally went to the barbers and did it because I was like, I don't want to mess up. So I was like, get someone professional job, make it look good, kind of thing. But like right now, I'm kind of like, it's a little bit more convenient. And sometimes it's nice to know that, maybe I've saved 30 or 40 quid that month or whatever. So that's me kind of being stingy and frugal potentially.
My problem is, and not to talk too much about this, but I think guys, if you get like a skin fade, which is what you got, right? Or a skin fade or a fade in general. If it's short, basically, you need it every like 2 weeks really to keep it like that. And I'm always like begrudgingly like, I don't want to, like you said, it's going to be 30, 40 quid at that point if you're doing that every 2 weeks. So I tend to do it once a month, but I'm always like, for a week, I'm looking at myself being like, you look shabby, especially because I have all these grays coming through the sides. I don't know if you've got any of those coming in. All through the top.
Mine's on the top. I've gone like a rogue type. Yeah. I've got a little grey streak down the middle somewhere.
It wouldn't surprise me, Mike, if you just ended up shaving off your hair.
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't.
I'm thinking monk mode. Like, I could see you doing it.
Yeah, to be honest, I probably would, to be fair. That's what my dad's done, which is a little bit scary. I'd probably go down that route. My dad's totally shaved his head, even though he probably does have hair.
So, yeah, anyway, Mike is on the channel because he is a coach at Revive Stronger. If you don't know, he's a competitive natural bodybuilder, competed last year, right? It feels like ages ago now. And so, like I said, he's a coach, but also physio for the team. So he has a great amount of knowledge there. And it was 4 months ago you were last on, episode 336, if people want to check it out. We're talking about adapting to a calorie intake. And I thought it was just good to catch up and get an update on you, Mike. How are things? If I don't know what springs to mind when I say that to you, but like, how's life? How's bodybuilding? How's everything?
Yeah, no, it's good. So I guess, when we last recorded the last episode, I guess we were I was just coming into like proper massing because we'd kind of we'd gone through the recovery diet as such. And then we were really getting stuck into the meat of the off season. Whereas now we can really say like, I don't know, deep off season is the right word, but we're in the meat of it, should we say. And things have been good. So been loving training, lots of good positive training momentum moving forwards. And also in the interim, so we obviously had a little informal Revive get together in April, which I think might have been sometime after we recorded the episode. So that was around April time. We then sort of in June, we had the WMBF First Timers. So I was there kind of helping out at the First Timers, which was a great show. And then the then I went to the MPA Novice and did a little bit of helping out as a judge there, which was great. And then we had the MPA Southern this last weekend as well. And again, I was helping out there as a judge. So it's been really good, just enjoying training, enjoying just being part of the natural bodybuilding community, helping out and connecting with people. So it's just been a really, really positive, few months.
Yeah. So now, given you competed, I forget when your last show would have been, October, around that time?
So it was the Supernaturals last year.
Yeah. So it's almost been a year of straight massing, no deficits, which is pretty cool, because I think a lot of people struggle to have that extended period. And bear in mind, I guess a month of that was recovery, and that was expedited. Still, that's a good extended period of time. And I know, like you said, you are kind of deep, because we're looking and being like, when do we want to do like a mini cut potentially? Like that mini cut is starting to float around as like a question for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, again, we were eating up, I guess, towards the end of the season anyway. And I think my rate of gain at times has probably been a little bit more on the slower side, and we've been trying to encourage it to trickle up a little bit more. So I think that all those factors have kind of been have factored into the equation. But yeah, very much now like, hey, I've definitely been heavier than this before in the past, but I think we're definitely at the level now where like, hey, do you know what? It'd be really nice not to get much past this, to stay in a nice body comp where we're not too far away, feeling good, feel confident, and I like the way that I look, but it's productive at the same time.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's only rare people like me that have that upper intervention point of body fat or body weight where I just hit a wall of well-being, appetite, just all goes to complete crap basically, and I need to cut down. Most people can kind of just keep trickling up, but like you said, we've done that, and you don't hold your body fat too badly at all. It's pretty even, and your frame is really nice. So you actually don't look bad, big and heavy, but there is a lot of body fat, as we learned as we came down to stage this time. There is quite a bit there to lose. So it's like, hey, we just have to keep that competitive mindset in check and be like, we don't want to have to journey down like multiple tens of pounds to kind of get to stage again. So it's just keeping a bit tighter, I think, is what you're looking to do, right? Oh,
definitely. And it made me think about, because you actually spoke about this on the Dave McConey podcast last week, I think, with Eric Helms, they talked about, when they think that when you're, when you're 2.5 times above your basal metabolic rate, that the body just starts to fight you a little bit. Did that do you remember that bit, or have you heard of it?
Don't know. No. I don't even remember that chat. I remember the chat with Dave, but I don't remember that specific point. Eric probably made it because he's just like a textbook, right?
A fountain of knowledge. Because I think originally it was Eric Trexler who mentioned it on either the Iron Culture podcast or the Mass podcast. And I think there's some research to show that once kind of you're trying to eat above 2.5 times your basal metabolic rate, like your body just fights you and it doesn't like it.
Interesting. Yeah, because I guess as a basic equation for your basal metabolic rate, I've always used like a 10 or 11 multiplier of your body weight in pounds. So if I'm 190 pounds, it's around, I don't know, BMR of 2000, and then my calories are 4,000 plus, it starts to get close to that. But that would mean like more like 5,000. Yeah, for me, whatever it is, it's not a food thing. Like it's not a calorie number, because I even struggle to maintain when I'm that heavy. It just gets like, I just feel nauseous and not good. So, but that is interesting. Quite a lot of food for most people, I think.
No, definitely, for sure. And probably why, again, I haven't heard, well, maybe I've heard one other person. I don't know about you, but you don't hear too many people saying like, oh, I'm struggling to get the calories. And unless you're someone where it's like, oh, I'm having to eat 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 calories a day. Like it's probably rare for people to say, oh, I'm really struggling to hold my weight kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't come across people like me very often. I'm like extreme end of the bell curve. I think maybe Dirk Emmerich gets similar to me, where he just gets into it, like, because he stays very close to stage condition too. And I think part of that is just not for like wanting to stay there. It's just a case of he gets into a position where he can't. I think he may have talked about it a little bit before, or I've forgotten his name now. Chris,
Palin.
last name Palin. Yeah. Him, again, if people don't know who he is, crazy condition that he brings. And I spoke to him backstage and he was like, he struggles as well to kind of get his food up and get that in. So there's maybe a few people ended the bell curve, but yeah, otherwise most people, if they're struggling to get their food in, I'm normally very skeptical. And I look at what they're doing. It's like, oh, I fast half the day, or my fiber's at 100 grams. You know, they're doing silly things. It's just like, hey, there's so many ways we could make this so much easier for you. I definitely wanted to touch on the judging, because we haven't spoken about that. And you've judged twice now then. How many classes, did you judge like every class? I'd love to hear a bit about how the MPA judge, whether or not, I think you've sat in on the WMBF judging a little bit too. So I'd love to hear if you saw any kind of differences or if it was very, very similar, because obviously I've only judged for the WMBF. So I'm always interested to see like how others do it, and I'd love to hear how you felt about judging.
I think my first takeaway in terms of differences was that I don't think the WMBF yet have the wellness category, to my knowledge. No. So that was the one difference. So the MPA have got a wellness category, and they're starting, I think they've got a few more distinctions in terms of, I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but in the MPA, they have toned and trained figure. Whereas I think in the WMBF, they would categorize it as figure, but then you've got fit body.
Correct. Yeah.
So again, the MPA probably just classify, it's a similar thing, except rather than calling it fit body, the MPA just call it trained figure, essentially.
Sure, makes sense.
So I think it's just kind of, it's a bit semantics there potentially. So those were kind of the main differences in terms of slight differences in categories. And really, I think there is a lot more emphasis in the MPA when it comes to the men's categories. I think for classic bodybuilding. So again, with the WMBF, you have bodybuilding is kind of merged, where you've got the bodybuilding, but then you've got golden era poses meshed into that as well. Whereas NPA,
we basically don't have classic in the WMBF. Yeah,
it's kind of like all one. Whereas MPA, there's a distinct division between, hey, this is open bodybuilding and this is classic. And in the MPA, there's a very distinct difference between like, right, okay, with men's open bodybuilding, the primary emphasis and focus is extreme conditioning, extreme muscularity. And that's the premise. Whereas in classic, it's more shape, pleasing lines, condition is, less of a focus, that kind of thing. They're not going to necessarily, if someone's peeled to the bone, but maybe they haven't got the most pleasing shape, or, maybe their kind of structure's a bit different, then, that's not necessarily going to be rewarded to the same degree type thing. So I'd say,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's probably easier to mark from a judge because it's just much more distinct. And you can just be like, right, okay, if you're really struggling, you can be like, right, what is the main focus of this category? And then it helps you, it makes it easier to clinically, or not clinically, but it makes it easier to rationalize your score and your marking of athletes.
I like that because it reminds me of the difference between fit body and figure. Where figure, they want the big size and muscularity, but they don't want like striation. We don't want striations and things like this. Whereas fit body, that's a bit more appropriate to have that like clinical leanness within them. And so I've always struggled with classic and bodybuilding when it's like, well, if they're not softer, then like they're just like bodybuilders, but now the lines, but those lines also somewhat influence like things like symmetry. So I'm glad that the MPA have decided to make it very kind of distinct there. And I wouldn't even frown upon marking down classic competitors who are like too lean and being like, hey, you've got lines in your glutes. We don't even want to see that because the board short, maybe the classic trunks often cover it anyway. And they're like giving themselves a wedgie to try and show it off. It's like, actually, no, we don't want that. Yeah. So that's quite cool to hear about.
We had that example at the Southern this past weekend where there was a really good athlete there, really good at, like, his conditioning was just spot on. But the guy who we awarded the first place to was nowhere near necessarily in the same condition. But the flow of the physique is posing routine. So again, that's probably another difference I would say with the MPA is they actually do mark and judge the posing routine and the posing execution. So again, it comes down to if we've got athletes on a similar kind of level, what's their posing routine like? And the example that I got given when I was kind of having some training was that, so with the posing routine, you've specific poses that they want you to hit. Whereas if someone comes on and the posing routine is maybe really inappropriate, they don't do any poses and it's just like essentially a breakdancing routine or something, then, and you compare that to someone you've got alongside them, but they hit a really nice, they've hit all their mandatory poses and it's, a well put together routine that they've thought about, put a little bit of thought into, that's going to put them ahead essentially. So that was the reasoning as to why the MPA likes to actually mark the posing routine.
So the WF, we will do that same thing. So if there's like a tiebreaker, it will be who did the better like posing routine. You could give it to that person, but it's not like normally people aren't so bad with their posing routine that it's like that is the close enough thing to differentiate the two. But that's cool that someone else came in more conditioned, but maybe didn't take the class over someone else in the classic division. That's cool. Does the scorecard work in the same way with like a 1 through 7?
Yeah.
And you have a symmetry, a muscularity round in most.
Absolutely. Yeah. So exactly the same from that perspective, which was nice. So it wasn't totally, I was kind of familiar with it a little bit before I went in, which was definitely very helpful. And as a judge coming into it, I think the MPA the MPA classes weren't quite as big as the WMBF. The numbers going through those shows weren't quite as big, so it wasn't less like stressful. Really jumping it. Yeah, it wasn't really jumping into the deep end where you've got like 12 in a class and you've suddenly got to like, right, what's the first call out? So it was a little bit more easier from that perspective.
Yeah, some of these men's physique classes were like, I don't know, it feels like I don't know if there's like 20 on stage, but there's like, I think there sometimes is. It's just kind of crazy. So that's nice. Yeah, when there's not that many in a class, you can kind of sit back a little bit and think about it a bit more and you don't have to kind of, it feels like sometimes you're a bit rushed, I would say, as a judge. It can do when the classes are that size. But I think that just comes with getting better skill set at judging, and you go with your gut a little bit more. What was I going to ask you? So the only thing I really saw from the MPA was Ryan Sapsteed won the overall, right? And he is now an MPA pro.
That's right. Yeah. So I was really, so no one knew that he was going to compete because I was helping out with the registration, and then I suddenly saw him come through the door and I was like, oh, hello. And he was like, yep. So I think he was using it as an assessment sort of for him to see where he was at, I guess. And and he came and, in terms of, overall package, muscle mass, conditioning was sufficient, all of that stuff. And, Ryan's great with his posing as well. So yeah, it was good. Very, very worth it. There was another really good competitor as well. Obviously everyone was really great. Felipe Lakota or something like that. He was actually coached by Andy Chappelle.
Okay.
So he was there too. But no, Ryan did a great job for sure.
Did Ryan do classic or did he do open or both? Or
he did the open over 78s or 78 plus.
They use weight categories in the MPA. I guess that's another difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah.
What was I going to say? One more thing. From memory, I think it's because the MPA has obviously changed hands now, but in the past, different federations would kind of, you'd get a sense of what they liked from, for example, bodybuilding that I know. So the UK FBA, at least in the past, it used to be like condition was like, that's if there's one thing they really want, it's condition. Whereas the MPA, I tended to see rewarded more size, and like there could be someone more conditioned, but if there's someone like a bit bigger, they're going to go with the bigger person, and like thick abs, very classic kind of bodybuilder type of look. But I imagine now it's changed hands, that sort of stuff is not so much the same. And So yeah, it sounds like it's very similar, at least, to the WNBF in terms of judging, which is nice, really, as a competitor. So you don't have to worry about having to fit a certain, like, I know bikini is one of the ones that changes the most between federations.
I would say, from my sort of observations so far, I think the MPA are very much big on like which athlete fits their category the best. So, and again, it comes back down to like, what's the focus points? So again, if it's open bodybuilding, either men's or women's, it's like, right, max conditioning, max size muscularity, and who fits that the best. So whereas if it's classic, okay, it is more about the structure, the posing, the shape, etc. So they go for that. And same with any of the female categories. And something else that the MPA do a little bit differently is when it comes to the overalls, like, everyone comes on together. So you've got bikini with figure, with women's bodybuilding, and likewise with the guys, you've got, the physique athletes with the classic, with the open, and it's, okay, which of these athletes is like the most, is their category, which athlete represents the category the best. And that's who we choose as the overall, essentially, because again, their reasoning is that, right, whoever is going to win the overall and potentially get a pro card, they have to step on stage and really hold their ground. Like, we don't want to give an athlete a pro card, and then as soon as they go into a pro competition, they're just going to be, a fish out of water sort of thing. So I think, again, that's something which I think is slightly different to other federations.
The WNBF do that with the women.
Okay.
I believe that's how they do it, but for the men, I believe that's differentiated. I'm not entirely sure why. I believe that's how it goes, but for the women, that's what I also recognize as picking the woman that is the best representation of that category. They might have won their class, but are they truly better than the others at representing that category? So that's cool to hear about. Where was the MPA Southern? How southern was it?
Swindon.
Swindon. I actually don't know where that is.
That's so it's pretty much, it's about 45 minutes to the west of Oxford. So kind of like,
Oh, it's not that south then.
No. So it's still south. I wouldn't technically class it as the Midlands. I think some Midlands people might get a little bit angsty about it.
It's fairly Midlands, yeah.
it's approaching. Depends how north you are.
Where it cuts off, right?
Yeah. Let's call it towards the West Country. We'll call it West Country, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't on my radar, but as you know, actually, you might not know this, but with Cliff, he essentially, as soon as we started, he was like, he wanted me to pick shows within 4 weeks of one another, because I don't want you doing more outside of that, which is different, because last time I competed, I did shows that were like months and months apart. So, and I know right now, same as Ryan, who ended up winning the overall, like he's doing the WNBF UK Supernaturals, of course. I know he's going to be doing that one. So he stood on stage and was competitive. I know if I'd stood on stage, I have condition now that would be competitive. But as we learn, and that was actually very good for me to learn, like, shows are fatiguing, and like, it's kind of like they say, every peak week you do, you can't quite establish that same result every time. Like, the body, I don't know what it is, it gets fatigued, it doesn't quite adapt to it the same way. So yeah, I think you do want to be a bit choosy about shows and things.
Oh, for sure. I think that was a great learning process, because I think it's also a distinction between, mentally you could be coping with it fine, but your body might not be coping with it. And I think that's important. Just as much as someone can get mentally burnt out, you can get physically burnt out, and you might be fine. And I think that's really, like you said, it's a really good lesson to learn.
It reminded me, because I went away this past weekend with Charlotte and Ada, and like, it's meant to be a de-stressing thing, right? You go away into the countryside, we got into the sticks, and I wasn't training, and it was like not refeed calories, but it was higher calories, kind of diet break calories. But the process of the travel and the sleeping in a different environment and food being a little bit different, like, it's it is de-stressing in some ways, but all the other stressful factors come in that make it a net, like, I don't know if it was net de-stressing, to be honest. It would have been less stressful being at home and just like lounging around here for my body. So I think that is a very similar thing with shows. There is a lot that actually you have to do in terms of the tanning process, traveling, sleeping in a different environment, the posing, the anxiety that it like you're anxious, you have adrenaline going when you're on stage. Every time you compete, it is a little bit of like it does draw some resources from you. So yeah, it was definitely a great learning to have that. I will be with clients more careful about choosing shows that they truly want to do. Normally I have to encourage people to do more than one. But for you, like, how many shows was it in the end that you did?
We did 5 in the end,
5,
but
yeah.
you know, I think we had more like question mark, there was a lot on the thing. So
I think 4 is like a good upper limit, I think, probably for a lot of people.
I think so. With a bit of, even like a little bit of space, because I was going to say that even my skin wasn't recovering between tans, because you'd get the tan, but then obviously it takes a while for the tan to come off or for you to exfoliate. And I was finding that when it came to go to the next show and you get another tan, my skin just wasn't taking on the tan properly. And every time I'd get a tanner that would go, "Who the hell did your tan last time?"
Yes.
But it was a different person every time. And I was like, "Oh God, so-and-so." No, but no, my skin just wasn't recovering at all. And it was just because every weekend, it was just too short a turnaround, essentially.
Yeah, so many factors that play into this, and people will poo-poo the importance of a tan, but it can really make a difference if your skin is not taking it up, if you're not dark enough on stage, if it's like spotty all over the place, as you know now judging, and I know like all too well, if someone on stage and their tans are just a complete mess, it can hide detail, just like if you had tattoos everywhere over muscle groups, like that has the ability to hide detail the same way. So definitely plays a role there, and a good point. I don't know is there anything else from the judging experience from being at those shows that you kind of want to share? Are you doing any more judging? Is there like the MPA kind of, is there like a finals for the MPA?
So they've got the British Open. So that'll be on the 1st of September in Coventry. So hopefully I'll be up there doing that. And, it might not be judging, but I'm definitely going to be there at the Supernaturals. I'll help out as well as supporting you. And, there'll be, I think we potentially might have Andrew competing there as well. He'll be there. So yeah, it'll be good. So I'll definitely be at the Supernaturals as well.
Yeah, it'll be nice. Oh, you're going to be working, so I can't have you as like my hand backstage. But me and Andrew will probably have to be each other's in that sense. I'm actually excited to see how Cliff manages all the kind of what he suggests me to do on show day and everything, because I'll have already given Andrew a plan, so he'll be sorted and I'll be there. So hopefully Cliff will give me the same as just like, do this, and I'm just like, head down, done. That'll be cool. But that's exciting that you're being Coventry and hopefully judging at that one as well. And just the experience you get from being sat there, you learn a lot of, how can I apply that next time I'm on stage? But you've already been to so many shows now and obviously heard me talk about it, and you had the insights of being at the WNBF and kind of hovering and seeing how the judges are going, that you've taken a lot of that on board.
Well, I think as you know, that I think it's one thing hearing someone talk about it, and it's another thing actually doing it, seeing it and learning it yourself practically. And it really sharpens you as a competitor and as a coach, because you have to be so objective in breaking things down and analyzing physiques. It sharpens you. You're like, right, okay, for yourself personally, you're just like, right, I need to make sure that I'm doing this or I'm working on that. And then likewise, you see it in your athletes. You're like, okay, potentially this person isn't suitable for this category, or we need to make, we're off in terms of conditioning. We need to make sure we're dieting for a little bit longer or whatever. It just sharpens you. So it's just really great. And as you know, like sometimes the conversations that you have with your fellow judges are just so rich in terms of just learning or getting other people's perspective. It's so great from that development aspect.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah. It just, like you said, it completely sharpens you and it makes you respect not just the categories and what they're truly looking for. It also makes you respect the different category rounds. Because I think as a competitor, your weak points might not be the same as what you think your weak points are. So like, I don't know, for myself, I don't have very weak like delts and like my lats and my quads. Like they're not inherently like weak points, like objectively, but objectively to be better for bodybuilding, they are weak because my symmetry is not as good as it could be because they're maybe not as big as they could be, if that makes sense. So you get to actually like, okay, what are my weak points based off the categories and what the judges are going to be scoring me on. So how can I improve that? And that's invaluable.
It's almost like using that as your guiding light determines your training program. Because like you said, if you're like, right, my symmetry is a weak point, by improving my delts, I'm going to improve my symmetry. Well, that dictates your training program. Yeah. I just think it's so helpful to know that for sure. And it's weird in some ways, isn't it? Where again, by trying to create a symmetrical physique or trying to create the best physique, you have a very asymmetrical program in some senses.
Yeah, you can do.
It's like, because if you have to bring up your delts again, it might be like, you look at it and you think, why the hell is he doing all this delt work? You know, it just makes no sense. But then again, when it comes to seeing the results of that, it then does make sense. So
yeah, for sure. It's the starkest times I see it was clients who have just very impressive legs. And so their leg volume is just so pitifully low. And it's like your legs are like double your upper body. They're not quite that extreme, but like we can just put those way on the back burner. Legs don't need that much volume anyway. And then the upper body is just like you said, the program does not look balanced, but for their outcome, it's going to be balanced. I wanted to ask you, Mike, I don't know if you got anything else on that?
No, just the final point I was going to add to that is you have that in sport as well. So, for example, if you were to take a tennis player, for example, they're going to be doing so much work on their serving arm that actually you need that serving arm to be stronger and you need them to sort of bias that side a little bit more to make sure that it's protective. Obviously, you don't want it to get ridiculously, but still their program is going to look a little bit asymmetrical because the nature of the sport is asymmetrical. So again, there's kind of, when I'm talking with some of my physio colleagues, they talk about similar things, but just from a sporting context.
Is it Nadal he had jacked arms, but one of them was particularly jacked?
Yeah, like if you were to X-ray his right forearm, like the bone density was significantly more on that right arm. Yeah, that's
so funny. I was going to ask you, because I know you like reading books. Is there anything you're currently reading that you would recommend to the listeners? Or
good question. So, Ryan Holiday is he's the person who's really over the last few years popularized / made Stoicism more mainstream, and he's brought out a new book recently called Right Thing Right Now, which is centered around the virtue of justice, doing the right thing, essentially. Now, I haven't actually read it yet, but that might be something the listeners might be interested in. I personally have gotten really interested, which is going to sound really weird, in a little bit of history with regards to the US presidents, because I started reading the biography of Harry S. Truman, who was the president who took over from Franklin Roosevelt in the Second World War. And he was the president that was responsible for dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima in Japan. And he was in this phase of history, which was just really just a critical time. Lots of things going on, Second World War, atomic bomb, Cold War, etc. But he was just a good person. Like, he had all this corruption going on around him. He had all this pressure, but ultimately he stood by his principles. And it just got me a bit fascinated with history. And I think there's so much sometimes we can learn from other people and biographies. And it just sent me down that rabbit hole. So now I'm actually reading a book about the life of George Washington, who was the first president of the United States. And I've just got this book list of people. So
oh my God, that is a rabbit hole and a half.
I've just totally gotten down the rabbit hole. But just to balance myself out, I don't know yet, but have you heard of the Rings of Power?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's going to come out sometime soon on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, because it's from the Lord of the Rings, like before the Lord of the Rings. It's set, is it? Like prequels? Yeah. Yeah, I need to actually watch. I have watched, I think, all of the Lord of the Rings, but not for ages. Charlotte hasn't seen them. And so I wanted to like sit down and watch them with her because I think she'd actually enjoy it. I mean, it's kind of, they're some of the best films out there, I think. And I think that's widely accepted. So yeah, I haven't actually seen any of the Rings of Power or anything like that yet. I think there even might be some already. Is there some already live? I think there might be.
Yeah. So they did they started it. It was like, I can't remember when it was released, but I was watching it at Christmas time. It was so good. So good. Even if you just have a few little memories of Lord of the Rings, you know exactly what's going on. And they've done it so well. It's really, really, really good. Yeah, would highly recommend it. And I do think Charlotte would like it as well.
I've just been watching... You never watch Game of Thrones, right?
No, I've not seen it.
You might enjoy it. I think you probably would. It's probably... I mean, it has bits that are like... what's it called? Lord of the Rings in terms of like scenery and like fantasy and that sort of thing. So I think you'd probably enjoy it. But I've been watching House of Dragon, which is... Actually, that's not on Prime. But anyway, Netflix. I've been watching House of Dragon. It's not on Netflix either. I'm watching it on some sort of website that Pascal gave me. So it's not like I'm not subscribed to anything. So yeah, anyway, I've been watching that. That's been fun.
Nice. Is that supposed to be like Game of Thrones, or is it like a sequel
it's a
to Game of Thrones?
Prequel, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. So I wish I'd watched, it's kind of similar here. I probably want to watch all the Lord of the Rings again and then watch the Rings of Power, and then here I wish I'd watched all the Game of Thrones again so that I kind of get the links, because it's been years since I've watched any of that stuff. But man, it's nice to switch off of an evening, and I love the fantasy stuff and like the dragons and stuff like this and like fighting. Like I like that.
And this is actually going to tie into something which I've been struggling with, which we've been talking about in our check-ins, is that sometimes I struggle to switch off. And it's not because I've got, lots of crazy stressful things going on, but I think what I tend to do, which maybe the listeners can relate, is I will sort of be working all the way up until I need to have dinner and then go to bed. And then it's like, I'm reading. Tell you off
for that.
I know, it's terrible. And then again, like I probably don't allow myself to switch off. And I'm probably, to be fair, that the fact that I'm reading probably gets me excited a little bit in a weird way. And it's
depends
probably
what
still,
you read, right?
Yeah. And it's probably still stimulating my mind. Whereas sometimes when you watch things, you really do just switch off. So I think, and that again was why in Christmas time, I did start watching stuff again, because I was finding I couldn't switch off. And the only way that I switched off was by watching stuff. So it's probably, there's a reason.
Yeah, it's when the mind's racing of an evening, to try and get to sleep sometimes is just like torture. And there's only so much you can do. And I think in some situations like yours, clear kind of answer in terms of, hey, don't work late. Don't invigorate the mind, like hugely leading to bedtime. Try and have relaxing things to switch off to. For example, Love Island was on recently. So me and Charlotte watched Love Island of an evening, and it's just like, there's nothing stressful about that. I don't care about it. It's just like, it allows me to sit there and relax, and me and Charlotte have like a fun conversation about it, and then I can go to bed. My blue light blocker's on, like it's a non-issue, right? So I find that just perfect. And I think it's easy to get caught up in look, I think especially as athletes, like we always want to be doing something productive. We go out for a walk, but it's steps. It's like, yeah, but can't you just go out and relax and like have a walk or something? You know, we always feel like we should be doing something productive, but it actually sometimes unproductive things are productive, if that makes sense. Like being able to switch off.
Well, it comes exactly back to what you say and what Cliff Wilson said years ago, is that the best athletes know when to push and when to pull back. And it's just about knowing that, and knowing that actually something that's hard for one person is not hard for another. And, you know, some athlete might really struggle not, you know, sitting down all day watching TV, whereas actually for someone else, that's exactly what they need to do. And that's hard for them. That's their homework. And also finally is that, you know, again, even as coaches, you know, we have weak spots, we're imperfect, we're people. And the hardest thing is living what you teach, essentially, I think.
Yeah. The only other thing with things on the mind, sometimes it can't be helped. Like, I don't know how you were for this, Mike, but the day before a bodybuilding show, my mind is always kind of racing about that day and thinking about it. I try and relax as best I can. Hopefully this year will be better. And the only way I can ever combat that is try and combat it outside of general things like trying to have, like I said to you actually, and I think in a check-in, like try and set aside time to stress about it. If you're fully prepared, you shouldn't be worrying about it, but inherently it's hard to sometimes switch the brain off. I'll do things like ashwagandha, like just having that in my kind of supplement regime, and L-theanine. I'll use that a bit more. Ashwagandha I kind of take as more of a, I think it's something that you need kind of chronically built in your system. I don't think it's you can take it and you suddenly get a stress response, I think, or stress relieving response. But L-theanine, I think, is more that way, where you do get a relaxation response kind of more acutely from it. So I do take kind of L-theanine a bit more spotty at times, whereas ashwagandha, I kind of take intermittent breaks and then reintroduce it when I think stress is going to come in. But yeah, I don't know. How are you the day before a show? Are you all right?
Do you know what? I'm actually okay. I really am okay, because I think in my head, it's got to the point where I'm like, hey, I've done absolutely everything. Nothing more I can do. And I kind of just, it's weird. It's just like a subconscious letting go almost. Yeah. I think that's why I try to be so diligent beforehand that I've literally got no stress kind of the night before kind of thing. If I am thinking about anything, it's just the minor nuances of logistics, like, okay, make sure I've got my food, make sure I've got my posing trunks and stuff like that. But in that scenario, I would say to people, like, having lists that you can tick off is just really valuable. Like, so, because then it's almost like you're taking it out of your brain and you're putting it onto the paper. And then it's like, right, trunks tick and dit and dit. And I think, again, that's something that I just find helpful. And that's the only thing that I tend to think about more than anything. But even then, it's a good exercise to say to yourself, like, hey, shit's going to come up. You know, I might drop my Tupperware everywhere and blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, food might go off and, you know, shit happens. And sometimes it's just about accepting it and being like, cool, do my best, roll with it. What can we do? And then just move forwards.
I'm bad at letting go. That's what it is. Guys, I had that this week I had some health concerns. I had some scans and I just can't switch off from it. I'm just like, what if it's something terrible? And I can't let go. It's like, yeah, but you're going to find out tomorrow. You're going to have the scan and it will tell you everything. It's like, yeah, but I just can't. It's so hard for me to let go. I think that's just part of I'm going to say it's partly my genetic makeup. Quite a lot of my family are kind of overthinkers and anxious individuals. And sometimes it's not easy to tell someone, oh, just let it go or just relax, like you're going to find out, be rational about it. It's kind of similar, I guess, maybe to someone who's like addicted to something and telling them to just don't have it, or just eat less and move more, to someone who's like been obese their entire life and they struggle with it in a huge way and failed every diet they've done. It's kind of like, but it's easier said than done. I wish I was better at it.
Totally. And like, I think it might not help, but like questioning yourself again, like a question that really resets me a little bit is this in my control? And so you ask yourself, like, right, outcome of the test, is that in my control? And you go, no. And then you're like, right, what's the worst outcome? You know, da 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 da. And then you're like, okay, well, if it is, I can't change it now. What's gonna, and then again, you could stress like, oh, whatever. But I think if you start down that route and you start just questioning it, like, oh, okay, well, if it is this, then can I still handle it? Yes, I can. Then can I control that? No, I can't. And again, like, I think if you can start questioning yourself in that manner, I think it doesn't take the full weight off of it, but it does help to relieve some of that initial maybe acuteness potentially of the anxiousness. Because again, if you think about it, anxiousness is you're thinking about the future. Inherently, it's and you're wanting the future to turn out maybe a certain way. But again, we have no control over that. So it's just about like, hey, absolutely. It's the same as saying like, I want it to be sunny tomorrow. And it's like, you've got absolutely no control whether it's sunny or whether it rains or whether it snows tomorrow. All you've got control over is, okay, if it's sunny, then I'm going to put some sun cream on. If it's raining, I'm going to take an umbrella, and even then, the umbrella might blow away or blow inside out,
Yeah, I think it's definitely great advice. It's the stuff that I would be telling my clients, but it's sometimes really hard. I think if you are just like a high anxious person to put it into place where it's like, yeah, I understand I have no control over it, but that almost stresses the person out. And like you said, it is to look at what you do have control over. Like if it is that outcome, then what would you do about it? What can you do about it? I think in some situations that works for me great. In others, I'm just like, I can't even think about that yet until I know what it is. And again, it's just the mind racing. It's a frustrating thing, but I think I'll be better this time round. Experience helps, but I still get it with like flying, for example. Like I'm not rational about flying. I know it's safer than most forms of travel. I know the risks are incredibly low, but still, when I'm on that plane and I'm out of control, I'm like, no turbulence, please.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But do you know what? That's a really good point. So a mistake people make is that they think Stoics and philosophers, etc., they think they're like emotionless, but that's totally false. So, and there's this guy called Nassim Taleb, who is a bit of a kind of modern day philosopher person, but he said it's about the domestication of your emotions. So it's about feeling the emotions, but then not being a slave to them. So it's about feeling it. So you're like, hey, I am feeling, anxious, afraid, worried right now. But like you said, you just get a little bit better at coping with it every time. And, there was this story about how there was this, warrior philosopher on a ship, and this storm broke out and the ship was going all over the place. It looked like the ship was going to sink. And one of the sailors saw the philosopher, and the philosopher looked really scared. And then afterwards he was like, oh, hey, you looked really scared. And he was like, yeah, I was really scared. But, I didn't let that, I felt it. It was natural. But then I then sort of controlled it in a way, sort of thing. And I think that's the same thing. And Mike Israetel has spoken to us about it. It's okay to feel these emotions. It's okay to feel sad or shit, but then it's just about like, hey, feel it, but then, be okay with it kind of thing. And like you said, that comes with experience, and, you can see it in yourself. You get better at it as time goes by.
Yeah. I wonder what it must be like, because like I said, I'm a bit of an anxious person, but to have like an anxiety disorder or to have panic attacks, like I imagine that's like another level of like, how do you even manage that? And I don't actually know how they manage that, but I'm glad I don't have any of that. To change gears a little bit, Mike, I'm going to talk about something that I was very interested that you spoke to me about. Was I had an experience of shoulder pain in my AC joint, and having reflected on it, it kind of became clear it was due to using cuffs on lateral raises. So at various times I've tried cuffs and I never really liked them. I reintroduced it because someone kind of mentioned something on a post being like, hey, why aren't you doing this cuff? And I was like, oh, I'll try it. But I also I tried to grip onto a D handle at least at the same time, because I've seen people recommending that. And I thought, oh, that would probably, I guess, stabilize the elbow joint and turn some things on. But you never grip that quite as hard as what you grip a D handle that's got all the load on it, of course. Anyway, so I got this AC joint pain and it wasn't great. And I then spoke to you about it, and you basically taught me through some of the reasons why maybe using cuffs in certain situations for some people might lead to some sort of discomfort or pain, maybe specifically AC joint, I'm not sure, but I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. So the shoulder is an incredibly dynamic joint. So there's over 21 muscles that are coordinating to control the movement and the stability of the shoulder joint. And so obviously if that coordination is off a little bit, then that might necessarily, cause some niggles, cause some issues. But one interesting thing, so the rotator cuff I'm sure a lot of listeners will be aware of the rotator cuff, but there are these 4 muscles, small, that sit underneath the bigger muscles that help to control, they help to provide a bit of dynamic stability to the humeral head in the glenohumeral joint. But some of their other roles is they obviously rotate the shoulder. So they obviously provide external and internal rotation. But one interesting sort of characteristic of them is that there's a neural feed forward mechanism. And you can sense this. So if anybody now was to grip their fist really tightly, you'd probably sense tension through the arm and through the shoulder. And so there's this neural feedback mechanism where if you grip something really tightly, it activates the rotator cuff because it's anticipating that you're going to need the arm in a movement. And so it's saying like, right, okay, we're going to use the arm in a second. So we need to provide a bit of stability, help with the movement in order to perform whatever action we're going to do. So theoretically thinking about that, if you're not gripping something, at least if you're not gripping something, then you're essentially maybe not optimizing the full stability and sort of force output of the shoulder. And so that's why I thought when you were saying about using the cuffs, that actually if you're not able to grip as well as you normally would do, well, maybe that's not allowing the rotator cuff to work as optimally as they would like to. Plus, you're doing a very fatiguing movement. I can't remember what phase in the training, meso, you were at the time, but I'm sure, yeah, you're pretty deep. So again, you're going to like naught RAR, and it's going to be really fatiguing on the shoulder. And again, we know that when the rotator cuff fatigue, that's going to, open the door up for, potential niggles and things. So again, it was those combination of factors, which I thought, okay, maybe, fatigue combination with the rotator cuff not being able to do their job as optimally, and then leading to kind of that potential outcome.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because so many people use cuffs, and I'm like, why have I never got on with them? And it might just be that my, shoulder just doesn't agree with it. And so I thought it was just a great example for people where, like, don't just follow your favorite influencers' exercises or what's popular online. Listen to your body, its feedback, how you should be moving. I know this is something we've both been discussing more and more on our social media, is deviances in technique or differences in technique. They can, as long as they're within, I always talk about it as like, so long as you're within these bumpers of acceptable technique for that muscle, for that exercise, like it could be look quite different. But that's because we're all built that little bit differently. And so we might get more doing it in a different way. So yeah, I don't know if anyone's listening who has experienced similar, that might be why they're getting some shoulder issues with the cuffs.
Yeah. And just on that point of individual structure, like compared to me, you're a relatively tall guy. If we were to compare our body structure, you've got relatively long arms compared to me. So your lever is going to be a lot bigger. Whereas, I might potentially get away with it. Who knows? Because I've got shorter arms. So again, lever arms make a big difference. Again, like if we were to use a squatting example, if someone's got really, really long femurs, squatting might not be an optimal exercise for them. Whereas for someone like me, squatting's probably okay because my femur length is really short. So again, that individual structure and biomechanics definitely plays a role for sure. And I think just one note, I think a caveat to technique, I think, is training status, because I think as you're advanced and you become very sort of kinesthetically aware of your body and very familiar with the technique, you are very in tuned to what feels stimulative to a muscle group and where potential deviances in technique is okay versus not okay. Whereas I think if you had a relative beginner, they don't have necessarily that awareness of their body, that understanding of technique to have a great idea of like how much of a deviance is acceptable. So I think that's always a bit of a caveat, which potentially I have in my head, which I don't know if you would agree with or not.
Yeah, I'd fully agree. I think about it when, I don't know, if someone's new to the gym, following like a template program online is probably really good because it's built for like the average person and you're new, and so it's probably going to fit you pretty well. You don't really know your body at that point, so you can't create your own program at this point. But if you and I were to find a program online, it's probably going to be really unsuitable. We need, because we know our bodies and our differences now, we can actually individualize it to be a better suited program to us. So it's like you said at the start with technique, you're better off focusing on kind of a quote unquote a textbook style of technique and make sure it's really good. You also don't need to train muscles as close to failure to grow. So that's really a big part of the technique concern anyway. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like you can't, otherwise that's where people get into problems and they start throwing around load thinking mechanical tension and I have to lift all the load. It's like, no, and I've been there too.
I actually, just on a quick note, an analogy that comes to mind is like as a chef, where, you know, when you're first learning a recipe, it's good to follow the recipe so that you know what, say, like a duck à l'orange is supposed to taste like.
A what?
Duck à l'orange? I couldn't think of another example. Lasagna?
What even is that?
Scrambled eggs? I don't know. Duck à l'orange. Have you not heard of duck à l'orange?
No, I've heard of duck à l'orange. I have no idea.
Duck with orange? Like roast? Oh, I don't know. I'm not that familiar with duck à l'orange. Anyway, if you were to...
Was this one of the president's favorite meals or something?
No, it wasn't. But what was... Yeah, anyway, I can't think of another example. Yeah, so if you wanted to cook like a recipe, in order to know what that dish is supposed to taste like, you know, it's good to follow the recipe. But then once you've done it lots of times and you know exactly what that dish is supposed to taste like, you can then start to fiddle around with the recipe a little bit and then add your little tweaks and little nuances to it so that it maybe becomes your own little version of that recipe. But until you know what the recipe tastes like, you can't call it X kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so if I come around for dinner, Mike, what are we having? Are we having duck à l'orange?
We're having duck à l'orange.
Have you ever eaten that?
No, I haven't.
I can't get over that that's the recipe example that you use. I'd be like, a spaghetti bolognese. Lasagna was a good one too, fair.
I don't know why that came into my head. Yeah, I have no idea. Well, that's the crazy mind of Mike Challis, unfortunately.
I'm guessing that's French, right? You're going to some like Michelin star French restaurants giving duck à l'orange.
Listeners, help me out here. Like duck à l'orange is like a classic French recipe. I'm sure it is.
To be fair, I'm not so keen on the French food. It's not snails. I don't know. That's always what I think of when I think of French food, right? I'm pretty boring and basic with my food.
Yeah, cheese. French soup, French onion soup. I can't think of another classic dish, to be honest with you. But yeah,
croissant,
absolutely, yeah.
And I do like a croissant.
Yeah, but we know that croissants are not satiating. They are 6 times less satiating than a boiled potato.
Is it 6 or 7? No, I can't.
Might have been 7.
I know that's something I had on an infographic one time because it's a nice little. I wish I could remember. I don't think there's. Well, we're coming to an hour now. So, is there anything else you wanted to chat about?
Well, actually, so I thought it would just be interesting. We might not talk about it for too long, but there was an interesting paper. So, I attend what's called like a RISE meeting, which is like a research meeting.
We talked about it last time, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a really interesting paper that we talked about last week, which was, it said, the International Olympic Committee Framework on Fairness, Inclusion and Non-Discrimination on the Basis of Gender Identity and Sex Variations does not protect fairness for female athletes. Okay, so, well, basically, it was, I think from my understanding, was that it was this scientific group, because essentially, obviously, transgender athletes are competing in the Olympics, and there is, you know, the IOC wants to help promote fairness, meaningful competition. And the premise of that article was, I think, a scientific group was saying, well, actually, and it kind of made sense in my head as well with what we know about, taking performance enhancing drugs, is that when someone is born a male, the physiological differences are apparent even from birth. And so if you imagine like when you're, young and a teenager, those hormonal and physiological differences are going to be there, and they're going to stay there even after someone has changed their gender. And so their argument was that, if someone is transitioning from a male to a female, and then they decide to compete in a female competition, well, inherently, even if their current hormone levels are within a defined range, that they've still got advantages, essentially, because they would have had those advantages sort of from their earlier childhood, and that they will still have those, essentially. So it's like, again, that contentious argument of, if someone has been on performance enhancing drugs, in their earlier days, and then maybe it's been a period of X amount, 3 or 6 years, are they still carrying with them those advantages from before? And so, yeah, the scientific sort of, the people who wrote the researchers who wrote the article were like, actually, they've still got those advantages. It's not really fair competition as such. And there was a lot of, interesting points in there, which again, there's, it is a controversial topic, but I think it's a good conversation to have. And, I don't know many transgender people. So, I'm very interested about, that discussion point. But yeah, so I don't know if you've got any immediate thoughts.
It's just that it's a big can of worms. But I tend to kind of agree with those judgments. I can't remember who said it, but I remember someone saying something along the lines of like, you could almost remove genders and just test like hormones. And then you'd categorize people. Like, again, that's a whole nother discussion, because this is, like you said, maybe their hormone levels now don't reflect what they were in the past, and that can play a role. But I know on social media, I've seen this boxing fight that's been out there, and basically this transgender woman on this from birth woman. I don't know if that's the politically right way to say it, but that's the way I've said it. And yeah, it kind of feels wrong in some ways that the transgender woman has taken that almost the opportunity, because it's like she's just physically far more capable. And yeah, there's a reason we have kind of males and females not compete together, and it's kind of blurring that line, right? So yeah, it's nothing I'm very well, I'm not sufficiently educated enough to have a strong opinion on it, so I don't have one. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
The one thing they did talk about, which I thought was a good point, was having an open category where, again, like it's an open category where anyone can choose to compete. It's an open category that all transgender people can compete in. And if other sort of sexes or genders want to also compete in that, then they can. And I thought that was quite a nice idea in some senses. And I think that really would kind of make things maybe a bit more of a, fairer or sort of level playing field as such. So yeah.
Side note, did you see the Turkish shooter who came second? It was just funny because most shooters, I don't know if this is actually what it's called, like they shoot with a gun at a target. But most shooters have like speciality eyewear, so they like block one eye and whatever. He just rocked up in his glasses, had one hand in his pocket, and just like was doing this shooting. And yeah, he just kind of went viral because it was just like, he just looked like he rocked up, and I think he was like 52 years old maybe, and like he was just like, I'm a natural. And he didn't have even like most people like protective earwear as well, and he had nothing. He was just like, yeah.
Wow,
so
that's
funny.
cool. It's kind of similar to someone just like rocking up at a bodybuilding show. They haven't dieted, they haven't done anything, they haven't got tan on, and they just show up and they're like, just win the whole thing and then go home. And you're like, oh God.
Yeah, these freaks out there. On that note, yeah, I need to watch more of the Olympics, but if people want to keep up to date with everything that you're doing and sharing across your social media, your bodybuilding journey specifically, where should they be heading, Mike?
Yeah, so please follow me on Instagram at Mike Revive Stronger, and that would be awesome. that's the main place for me. And I'm much better at Instagram now compared to how I was a year ago, even a couple of years ago.
Huge improvement. In fact, I should have congratulated on it. I'm going to say it now, Mike. Huge improvement. You're very present on social media, and I think, yeah, it's great. And hopefully you've seen benefits of that too and enjoyed parts of it as well. But yeah, guys, definitely follow Mike over there. If you are interested in coaching or physio with Mike, obviously we've got that linked in the description as well, so you can check those bits and pieces out. And if you want to see Mike on again, definitely comment and let us know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll talk to you next time. Cheers, guys.
See you later, guys.
Almost.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.